My name is Thea Myers, and I'm 36 years old. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, my mother called to tell me I was not welcome at the table this year because my sister didn't want any drama. That's the word my family uses for me. Drama. Not the lie that's been hanging off my name for 3 years. Not the money they still owe me. Just me. The drama. The problem chair at the table. I didn't argue. I didn't cry into the phone. But the Monday before Thanksgiving, I stood at a post office counter in my little Ohio town with 4 flat envelopes and a line of holiday shippers behind me. What was inside those envelopes set my parents' phones on fire before sundown. 68 missed calls by 9 that night. And what I said on my own front porch at midnight, none of them saw that coming. Least of all, my sister. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where quiet women finally stop paying for other people's peace. If you've ever been called difficult just for telling the truth, you're home here. Drop a comment below and be sure to subscribe, because stories like this one never end where the family thinks they will. Now, let me take you back to the Sunday night that phone rang. The call came at 7 on a Sunday, while I was reconciling a client's payroll at my kitchen table. My mother has a voice she uses for unpleasant errands. Flat, bright, rehearsed. She used it to tell me the dentist found a cavity when I was 9, and she used it now. Honey, about Thursday. Brooke is hosting this year and she's been under so much stress and she doesn't want any drama at the table. So we all think it's best if you sit this one out. I looked at the spreadsheet in front of me. Numbers are honest. If a column doesn't balance, it tells you to your face. Sit this one out, I repeated. Mom, what drama would I bring? Name one thing I've done at one holiday. The silence went on so long I could hear their television in the background, some game show, applause rising and falling like weather. She didn't name a thing, because there wasn't a thing to name. What she finally said was, "Keep it pleasant, Thea. Keep it pleasant." My family's entire constitution in one small phrase, ratified sometime before I was born. Then, softer, like she was doing me a kindness, she added, "And don't make this about the other thing. It's Thanksgiving." She hung up before I could ask which other thing she meant, because in our family, there were two. There was the thing everyone whispered about me, and there was the thing nobody ever said out loud. The small matter of what was written on a notarized piece of paper in my office safe, with my father's signature at the bottom of it. One of those things ruined my name, the other one was about to ruin their evening. Let me tell you who I am, because my family tells it differently. I'm a CPA. I own a 2-person accounting firm on Main Street in Maple Falls, Ohio. My name on the glass. My office manager Jess at the front desk. 15 tax seasons in my rear view. Nobody handed it to me. I did night classes for the license while working full days, opened the firm at 29, and paid off my own small house by 34. I round to the nearest dollar. My family rounds to the nearest story. 4 years ago, my father's heart gave out in a parking lot, triple bypass, 11 days in the hospital, and a stack of bills that landed on top of a mortgage they had quietly stopped paying that spring. By October, the bank was using words like foreclosure. My parents never asked me for help. They just talked about losing the house at Sunday dinner, loudly, in my direction, until I did what I always did. I drained my savings, opened a line of credit, and wrote them a check for $52,000. And because I am who I am, I did it properly. A promissory note, notarized, modest interest, $400 a month. My family laughed about it for a year. Only Thea would make her own parents sign paperwork. Only Thea would treat family like an audit. But my dad signed it at my kitchen table with his reading glasses on, and for 13 months, the payments came. $400, the first of the month, steady as a metronome. 13 payments. $5,200. Then, 3 years ago this winter, the checks just stopped coming. And nobody in my family ever mentioned the loan again. You should ask me why they stopped. The answer has a name. The answer starts with my grandmother. Nana Eileen was my mother's mother, and she was the only person in our family who ever looked at me like I was more than a service department. She lived her last 4 years at the Birches, an assisted living place 2 towns over. Her choice, made with a straight back. I raised my girls, she told us. I'm not auditioning to be anyone's chore. Her hands had a small tremor by then, so she asked me to hold her power of attorney and manage her accounts. Not my mother, not my Aunt Pam. Me. You're the only one in this family who can read a bank statement without moving her lips, she said, and she laughed until she coughed. Every Thanksgiving of my adult life, I cooked the turkey in Nana's roasting pan, cast iron, heavy as a manhole cover, seasoned by 50 years of her kitchen. She passed it to me in front of everyone the year her wrists gave out. Other people in my family raised the toasts. I raised the oven door. That was the arrangement. And honestly, I loved my half of it. One November, while I basted and she supervised from a chair with her cane hooked on the counter, she watched my mother reorganize the seating chart for the 3rd time and said, quietly, just to me, "You don't owe anyone a seat at a table, honey. Remember that." I didn't understand her then. I filed it away the way you file a receipt you don't think you'll need. Her checkbook lived in a small valuables safe at the Birches, signed in and out through the front desk, because I insisted on that too. Remember the checkbook. It matters more than anything else in this story. 3 years ago, in September, I sat down to reconcile Nana's quarterly statements against the billing from the Birches, the way I did every quarter. The columns didn't balance. I ran them twice, then a 3rd time with a printout and a highlighter, and my stomach went cold and stayed cold. $9,400 had left her account over the course of one summer, a run of checks from her personal checkbook, 2 of them large, the rest small, none of them mine, none of them matching any invoice from the facility. I did exactly what I would tell any client to do. I flagged it in writing to the bank that same afternoon. I called my mother, and then my Aunt Pam, and told them plainly. I offered to bring in an independent accountant, someone with no last name in common with any of us, to trace every dollar. I put copies of 5 months of statements in a folder for each of them. I want you to notice something. I found the missing money. I reported the missing money. I was the only one asking questions about the missing money. And at the family meeting that October, in my parents' living room with the good coffee cups out, I watched every set of eyes in that room slide toward the one person who held power of attorney. Then my sister Brooke, perched on the arm of my mother's chair with her hand resting on Mom's shoulder like a saint in a church window, said the sentence that would cost me the next 3 years of my life. Soft as a napkin, she said. Well, Thea handled all of Nana's accounts, didn't she? I'm not accusing anybody. She never accused anybody. That was the genius of it. She just lit the fuse and left the room. A lie like that doesn't run. It seeps. By Halloween, my Aunt Pam had repeated Brooke's little non-accusation to both of my cousins, with her own varnish on it. By Christmas, a woman at my parents' church squeezed my mother's hand in the fellowship hall and said she was praying for the family's troubles. In January, the State Board of Accountancy received an anonymous email expressing concern about my professional ethics. No name, no evidence, no case. The board dismissed it in 3 weeks. But the word investigation got loose in Maple Falls, and words like that don't die. They hibernate. Understand what I did that winter, because my family has revised it since. I did not sulk. I fought like an accountant. I sent every relative a complete copy of Nana's records with a cover letter. I asked our estate attorney, Bill Garvey, to host a family meeting where anyone could ask me anything with the documents on the table. My father declined for everyone. This family is not a courtroom, he said, and he said it like I was the one dragging us into court when I was the one begging to be cross-examined. Here's the trap nobody tells you about, the one I want you to feel in your chest. You cannot clear your name if nobody will formally accuse you. There was no charge to answer, no judge to convince, no court date where the truth got a turn to speak. There was only a whisper with my name inside it, moving from kitchen to kitchen like smoke under a door. You can't cross-examine a whisper. You can only stand there holding your folder of bank statements while your family decides, one casserole dish at a time, that the quiet sister with the spreadsheets probably did something with Nana's money. Nana Eileen died in March, 2 years ago, at 89. She went in her sleep, in the good building I had made, sure was paid for down to the penny. I don't have the words for that loss, so I'll give you the paperwork instead, because the paperwork is where my vindication went to be ignored. Her estate went through probate. Bill Garvey prepared the final accounting. Every transaction I had ever made under that power of attorney, itemized, documented, matched to an invoice or a receipt. The court reviewed it and approved it. On the record, in black ink, my stewardship balance to the dollar. The missing $9,400 was listed too, in careful legal language. Unauthorized withdrawals from the resident's personal checkbook. Source undetermined. Copies went to the beneficiaries, my mother and my Aunt Pam. I know they received them because I watched Pam's husband carry the envelope in from their mailbox while I sat in my car across the street like a woman staking out her own reputation. Nobody ever opened the exhibits. A judge cleared me, and my family never turned past the cover page because courts don't know Brooke like family does. At the funeral, my sister ran everything. The flowers, the slideshow, the little printed programs with Nana's face soft-focused on the front. People said she was the glue. I sat in the third pew and did the one thing left that was mine. I quietly kept on paying my parents' homeowner's insurance, the way I had since the year of Dad's surgery. $1,900 a year, autopay from my account, protecting the roof my $52,000 had saved. Call it strategy. Call it a habit of the heart I hadn't broken yet. The court had released me. My family hadn't. Neither had I. You want to know how a family exiles someone without ever saying the word? They do it one place setting at a time. The first Thanksgiving after the lie, my mother met me at the door and steered me, warmly, to the folding table with the kids. Just to keep things easy this year, honey. I was 33, seated between a booster chair and a bowl of dinner rolls, while my sister held court at the big table over a turkey I had bought. The second Thanksgiving, my mother called ahead. Maybe just come for dessert? Brooke's doing the whole meal, and you know how it gets. I came for dessert. I lasted 40 minutes, and the only person who spoke to me like a human being was my niece Madison, who was 13 and wanted help with her math homework. Last year, the invitation shrank again. My mother offered to set a plate aside for me to pick up, like takeout, and I declined with more grace than the offer deserved. And every year, without fail, the requests still found me. Could I order the turkey from the good butcher since I got the discount? Could I swing by with my folding chairs? Could I drop off Nana's roasting pan, since everyone agreed the bird just didn't taste right in anything else? My seat at that table shrank every single year. My invoice never did. This year there was no children's table, no dessert shift, no 40 minutes. There was just my mother's telephone voice telling me my sister didn't want drama, and a dial tone, and a kitchen that suddenly felt very quiet. I sat there for a long while, looking at nothing. Then my phone lit up on the table next to my cold coffee. A text. From Mom. I remember thinking, before I turned it over, that it might be an apology. You'd think 36 years would have taught me better than that. The text said to call her when I had a minute, so I did, that same night. She wanted to talk about logistics, whether I'd leave my folding chairs on the porch, whether the butcher discount could still be arranged even though, well, you know. I let her run out of small errands. Then I asked the only question I had left. Mom, look, I'll make it simple. Do you believe I took Nana's money? I heard her breath change. I heard the kitchen clock over her stove, the one that's ticked too loudly since 1994, filling the line between us. 6 seconds. I counted them the way you count the space between lightning and thunder, waiting to find out how far away the storm actually is. She didn't say no. Understand that. A mother who believed her daughter was innocent has a short, simple answer available to her, and she left it in the drawer. What she said, when the 6 seconds were up, was gentle and tired and final. Keep it pleasant, Thea. There it was again, the family motto, stitched on every pillow in that house. I said goodnight and hung up, and sat very still. Because here's what I understood for the first time, sitting in my quiet kitchen with my cold coffee. My mother was not a bystander who'd been fooled. She was the referee, and she had decided the game worked better with me in the penalty box, whether or not I'd ever committed the foul. Peace was the only verdict she cared about, and peace was cheapest if Thea stayed guilty. What she feared wasn't the truth. She feared the noise the truth would make. I didn't sleep much that night. Some ledgers, once you finally read them, can't be unread. My sister called me 2 days later, which surprised me, until I understood the call was maintenance. Brooke has a telephone manner like warm frosting. She's a year younger than me, sells kitchen renovations part-time, and runs our family the way other people run a brand. The group chat, the Christmas card photo in matching plaids, the flowers at church. That's all Brooke. And I'll tell you honestly, she's brilliant at it. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "Because I know Mom's call probably felt hard. It's not personal, Thea. The family just needs one calm holiday. You understand?" I asked her how it wasn't personal, given that I was the only person banned. She sighed, and the sigh had rehearsal in it. Then she said the thing I want engraved somewhere, because it explains my entire childhood better than any therapist ever has. "You're better with numbers than with people, Thea. Let me handle the family." Let me handle the family, like the family was a difficult client. Like our parents, our cousins, our dead grandmother's memory were accounts in her book of business, and I was a billing error she was smoothing over. And here's the strange part, the part I didn't expect. Underneath all that frosting, she sounded exhausted. Bone-tired, the way you sound when you've been carrying something heavy so long you've stopped mentioning it. I noted it the way I note an odd number in a margin. No explanation yet, just a flag. We said polite goodbyes. She thought the account was settled, but sitting there with the dead phone in my hand, I finally saw my sister clearly for the first time in 3 years. This wasn't cruelty to her. This was her job, and I was a line item. Before I tell you what showed up on my porch that same week, let me ask you something. If your family has ever believed a good story over a plain bank statement, tell me about it in the comments, because for 3 years I thought I was the only one. I read every comment, and if you're new here, subscribe, because you are going to want to know what was inside this box. Now, that Thursday, a delivery driver left a carton on my porch, addressed to Thea Myers, return label, The Birches, Records Department. I stood over it with scissors in my hand and couldn't make the cut. See, the Birches had been sold that summer to one of those senior living chains that buys up family facilities and repaints the lobby. When a place like that changes hands, the old files have to go somewhere, and by policy they go to the resident's last responsible party on record. That was me. Power of attorney, emergency contact, the one who signed the intake forms and the care plans and, at the end, the other forms. The ones nobody frames. Inside that carton was every piece of paper the Birches had ever generated about Eileen. 4 years of a life, reduced to folders. I wasn't ready to bleed again that week. It was quarterly filing season. I had clients stacked to the ceiling, and I had just been uninvited from my own family's table. So the box sat on the end of my kitchen counter for 5 days, brown and patient, like a witness waiting to be called. I'd walk past it at night, coffee in hand, and feel it looking at me. On some level, I think I already knew. Boxes like that don't come empty-handed. While the box waited, my family got busy online. There's a group chat called Myers Thanksgiving with a little turkey emoji in the name, and it has existed for 9 years, and I helped set it up on my mother's phone. That Monday morning, between a client's quarterly filing and a payroll run, I opened my phone to check the time and saw the notification stacked over my banking app like a small tombstone. You were removed from the group. No message. No goodbye. Just the digital sound of a door being weather stripped. Removed by whom, you ask? The group has one administrator. She sells kitchen renovations part-time. That afternoon, my Aunt Pam posted publicly on Facebook. Publicly, mind you, the woman CCS the whole county. A little devotional graphic of autumn leaves with the caption, "So thankful for a peaceful family this year. God is good." 41 likes by supper. I recognized at least 2 of those names as clients of my firm, and one as a woman who'd hugged me at Nana's funeral. Kyle, my sister's husband, put a laughing emoji on a message I'd sent Madison asking what time she got out of practice, which had nothing to do with anything, but bullies in a herd get sloppy. I want to be precise about what this felt like, because precise is what I have. It didn't feel like heartbreak. Heartbreak is hot. This was cold and administrative, like being deactivated, like watching your own name get archived. That night, I stood at my counter, and the box from the Birches was still sitting there, brown and patient. I put down my tea, took the scissors out of the drawer, and cut the packing tape in one long pull, and then I sat down slowly. Most of the box was ordinary and holy at the same time. Care plans, menus Nana had circled in pencil, a photo from a 4th of July cookout, her in a lawn chair wearing sunglasses like a movie star. I went through it folder by folder with tax season discipline, and near the bottom I found the copies of the 2 largest checks, the ones probate had already given me images of, the ones that had drained the biggest bite of the $9,400. I'd stared at them for 2 years. The handwriting leaned left. Nana's hand by then trembled right, in small sawtooth strokes. These signatures were smooth as a salesperson's. I knew what I was looking at. Knowing isn't proving. Then, in a folder labeled Resident Services, I found a single page that stopped my breath. An incident report, dated June of the year the money walked. A staff member at the front desk had logged, in tidy blue handwriting, that the resident's granddaughter, B. Hutchins, had signed out the resident's checkbook from the valuables safe and returned it on her next visit. There was a signature line for the family member. I know my sister's signature the way you know a scar. The date on that report sat 11 days before the date on the first large check. The second check followed 5 weeks later. Bank statements, check images, a signed log with a name on it. For the first time in 3 years, the chain had no missing link. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, not triumphant, just quiet, doing the saddest arithmetic of my life. And underneath everything, at the very bottom of the box, was Nana's recipe card for her turkey brine, the ink gone pale as a bruise. Salt, brown sugar, orange peel. Her handwriting didn't lean left. I was still sitting with that incident report the next morning when my mother texted me. "I'm going to give you the message exactly as it arrived, punctuation and all, because I've read it enough times to have it memorized. Leave Nana's roasting pan at the back door Wednesday morning. Brooke is hosting. Don't come in, it will just upset everyone. Keep it pleasant." Read that again, slowly, the way I did. Not, "How are you?" Not, "This is hard for us too." My family had banned me from the front door and was now scheduling a pickup at the back door, like I was a parcel service. They didn't want me at the table. They wanted my grandmother's pan on it, the pan she handed to me, in that kitchen, in front of all of them, when her wrists gave out, and she chose the granddaughter who cooked. And they wanted it left on a step, unattended, before the family arrived, so nobody would suffer the sight of me holding it. I walked to the cabinet and lifted the pan out with both hands, the way you lift a sleeping child. Cast iron doesn't care about gossip. It weighs what it weighs. I stood in my kitchen holding 50 years of my grandmother's Thanksgivings, and I looked at the box of records on my table, the incident report sitting on top like a verdict nobody had bothered to read into the record, and something in me finished a calculation it had been running for 3 years. I set the pan down on the table, right beside the box. The 2 of them sat there together, the evidence and the inheritance, and for the first time in a long time, the math in my house was clean. "The pan stays," I said out loud, to no one. "And so does everything in that box." The next morning, I called a number I'd had in my desk for a year and never dialed. Sandra Voss, attorney, 2 counties over, far enough that nobody in her waiting room would know my aunt. I brought everything. She read for 40 minutes without a word, flipping pages with one finger, then took off her glasses and gave me the summary I already knew and badly needed to hear out loud. The promissory note was alive and enforceable. A written contract, 6-year statute in Ohio, and the default only 3 years old. Balance: 46,800, 13 payments of 400 against 52,000. A demand notice wasn't aggression, it was the note working exactly as written, the mechanism my own father had signed at my kitchen table. As for my sister, the accusation that I stole from a dependent elder had measurably damaged a licensed professional. A cease and desist was overdue, and the estate had a clean claim to its missing 9,400. Then Sandra leaned back and asked if I understood who the estate's beneficiaries actually were. I did, but she said it anyway, because lawyers like the sound of irony. Your mother and your aunt, Thea. Every dollar your sister took, she took from the 2 women defending her. I laughed, once, the way you laugh at a joke that costs you something. Sandra drafted 4 letters that week, dense and courteous and completely without adjectives. I read them at her conference table, and my hands were steady, and then I asked her to let me take them home, unsigned. It's a week before Thanksgiving, I told her. Give me a few days. They're still my family. She looked at me the way professionals look at bleeding clients, but she put the letters in a folder and I drove home with them riding shotgun. Because here's the truth I'll admit to you before I'd admit it to any of them. I did not want to win by mail. I wanted my family to read 3 pages and hug me in a driveway, so I made one last try, off the record. I put together a binder, the court-approved accounting with the judge's stamp, the check images, the incident report with my sister's signature, and I drove the 20 minutes across town to my parents' house the very afternoon after I brought those letters home. My father came to the door and spoke to me through the screen. Through the screen, like I was selling something. I told him I wasn't there to fight, that I was asking for 10 minutes and a kitchen table, that everything in my hands was stamped by a court, or written by a stranger with no side to take. He looked at the binder the way some men look at weather rolling in. You'll not bring lawyers into this family, he said. Your sister cried a whole week because of you. Because of me. I stood on the steps my own money had kept out of foreclosure, and I set the binder down gently on the welcome mat, and I told him it would still be true whether he read it or not. Then I drove home. The next afternoon, the binder was in my mailbox. Rubber banded shut. Every page exactly where I'd placed it. I'd left a hair of paper misaligned on purpose, an old habit, and it hadn't moved. Stuck to the front cover was a yellow sticky note in my mother's handwriting. 1 short line and a period. Keep it pleasant. I stood at my mailbox in the cold, holding proof no one would touch, and I finally understood there is no reading list for people who prefer the story. That same week, the lie sent me an invoice of its own. The Hendersons, 6 years my clients, a good retired couple whose taxes I could do in my sleep, came in together, which is never a good sign, and sat with their knees pointed at the door. They were moving their business to a firm in Westfield. No complaint about the work, they were quick to say. The wife studied her purse and then said kindly, horribly, We heard things at church. I'm sure it's nothing. But at our age we can't have question marks. Question marks. 3 years of somebody else's whisper, and now it was billing me directly, in my own office, under my own name on the glass. I thanked them for 6 years and walked them out and did not defend myself, because a defense would have confirmed there was a trial. That same evening, my sister posted her Thanksgiving collage, gold letters over autumn plaid, grateful for a drama-free table this year. 200 reactions and climbing, and there in the comments, between the prayer hands and the hearts, a woman from the church wrote the sentence that finally made my decision for me. Every family has one. Bless you for protecting the peace. Every family has one. I sat with my thumb over the screen and felt the words settle. I did not comment. I have never once fought my sister on her home field, because you cannot outstory a storyteller. The crowd is hers. The lighting is hers. The edit is hers. but I know a field she's never played on. It has certified mail and return receipts, and a judge's stamp, and the lighting there is fluorescent and very, very honest. The final straw when it came was $1,900. Saturday night, with the returned binder still sitting by my front door, my mother left a voicemail. I stood at the counter and listened to it twice, because the first time I genuinely thought I'd misheard. She did not ask how I was. She did not mention the binder she'd sent back like a rejected casserole. She reminded me to leave the pan at the back door Wednesday, before 10 if possible, because Brooke liked to get the bird in early. And then, in the same breath, in that bright errand voice, "Oh, and honey, the homeowner's insurance bill came. 1,900. Same as always. You'll take care of it like every year, won't you? Okay. Love you." Click. I stood in my kitchen and I actually smiled, which frightened me a little. Banned from the table and billed for the house in the same 7 days. They had, without meaning to, finally written it all down in one place, the way I'd been begging them to for years. "We do not want you. We want what you carry. The pan out of your hands, the premium out of your account, the silence out of your mouth." It was, in its way, the most honest communication my family had sent me in 3 years. So I answered it honestly. I poured a cup of tea I never drank. I sat down at the table between Nana's pan and Nana's records, and I opened Sandra Voss's folder, and I read all 4 letters one more time, start to finish, like a professional. Then I took out my good pen, the one clients sign with, and I signed each letter in turn, and my hands did not shake even slightly. Monday morning, I drove to the post office. Let me tell you exactly what was in those envelopes, because precision is the whole point of me. Letter 1 and letter 2 went separately to my father and my mother. Same street address, 2 names, because when 2 people co-sign a note, notice goes to each borrower. Formal notice of default on a promissory note executed 4 years ago. Original principal $52,000. Credited, 13 payments totaling $5,200. Balance due, $46,800. An offer, in plain terms, to resume the original $400 a month through Ms. Voss's office, no lawsuit filed, interest accrued to date waived if a schedule was signed within 30 days. Attached, the cover page of the probate court's approved accounting, the one that cleared me, with the stamp showing. And one further notice. Effective at renewal, I would no longer be paying their homeowner's insurance. Letter 3 went to my sister. A cease and desist regarding statements accusing me of theft from a dependent elder, statements that had measurably damaged a licensed professional. Attached, the check images, and the incident report from the Birches, with her signature logged 11 days before the first check. 2 requirements. A written correction, sent to every family member who received the lie, by December the 1st, and repayment of $9,400 to her grandmother's estate, where the law says it belongs, which means, in the end, to our mother and our aunt. Letter 4 went to Aunt Pam. The full court accounting she never opened, and a courteous request to stop repeating claims a probate judge had already retired. There was not one line of feeling in any of them. No childhood, no Christmas, no, how could you? Feelings had run this family for 3 years, and feelings had lost. It was paper's turn. I asked for what had signatures on it, and not 1 cent more. Standing in that post office line on Monday morning, I nearly walked out twice. And if you think 4 letters was too far, or if you think 36 years was not nearly far enough, tell me in the comments, because I still read every single one. And hit subscribe now, because the next 12 hours undid 3 years of quiet, and you'll want to hear it from me. The Maple Falls post office smells like rubber bands and floor wax, and the Monday before Thanksgiving it was all holiday shippers, boxes wrapped in brown paper, a toddler crying somewhere near the passport photos. I stood in that line like a woman holding 4 small bombs disguised as paperwork. Twice I let someone go ahead of me. Twice I looked at the door. Because I knew something the line didn't. There are 2 kinds of mail in this country. Regular mail is a message. Certified mail is a record. The moment those envelopes crossed the counter, my family's lie and my family's debt would stop being family matters and become documented ones. Tracked, time-stamped, signed for, real in the one way my family had never allowed anything to be real. Doreen at Counter 3 has done my firm's mailings for 9 years. She peeled the certified stickers, pressed them flat with her thumb, stamped each envelope with that soft mechanical thunk. 4 thunks, like nails going in gently. She slid 4 green receipts across the counter. "Anything else, hun?" she said. I said no, thank you. That was everything. And it was. You cannot unsend the truth once it has a tracking number. I walked out into the cold sunshine, and the town looked exactly the same, and I drove to work. Then came 2 days of silence like a held breath. Wednesday, 11:40 in the morning, my phone buzzed once on my desk. Delivered. 4 of 4. I looked at that notification the way you look at a wave you can see coming from a long way off. I had a client in the chair, a nice man with a landscaping business and a shoebox of receipts, so I turned the phone face down and kept working. At 12:15, it lit up with my mother's face. I let it ring. It rang again before the voicemail chime of the first call had even finished. By the time I walked my client out at 1, there were 9 missed calls. By 3 o'clock, 22, and the texts had started stacking like hail on a windshield. "Aunt Pam," all capitals, "how dare you? She is your mother." A cousin I hadn't heard from in 2 years. Wow. At the holidays? Kyle, my sister's husband, showing his whole hand in one line. "This is low even for you, Thea." Even for me. Interesting phrase from a man whose 11 unemployed months I could now account for almost to the day. My father called 4 times in a row at 4 o'clock and left no message any of the times. By 6 in the evening, the counter said 41 missed calls, and I sat in my quiet office after Jess went home, watching the phone buzz itself in slow circles on the desk like something dying, and I felt, I'm going to be honest with you, calm, scoured, and calm. And then, at 6:40, buried in that avalanche, one text arrived that was different from all the others. Madison, my 15-year-old niece, all lowercase. "Aunt Thea, is it true about the checks?" I saw the letter on the counter. Is it true? I did not answer her. Not yet. Jess came back at 8 with takeout and sat with me at my kitchen table, because that's what a real ally does, shows up and doesn't perform anything. By 9 o'clock the counter stopped at 68 missed calls. 68. My family had not called me 68 times in the previous 3 years combined. We ate, and I played the voicemails on speaker, spaced out like tastings of something bitter. My father, early, at full boil. "Lawyers, Thea? Lawyers? Your own mother and father? You call me tonight." My mother, later, smaller, crying in that careful way she has where the tears never smear the words. "Honey, please. Whatever this is about, we can talk after the holiday. Just, please. Honey, keep it pleasant." Even then, even at the bottom of all of it, the family motto, worn smooth as a river stone. And it was Jess who noticed what I noticed, and said it out loud around a mouthful of noodles. She's not asking if it's true. Nobody has asked you if it's true. Nobody ever had. Not once. In 3 years. The last voicemail of the night came at 9:40, and it was Brooke, and I sat up straight, because my sister's voice, the frosting voice, the brand voice, had a crack straight down the middle of it. No script. Short. "Thea, call me before they see the rest. Please." Before they see the rest. Not, "It's not true." Not, "How could you?" Her first instinct with the walls coming down was inventory. What else does she have? I set the phone down and looked at Jess, and neither of us said anything. At 11:52, headlights swept across my front curtains, slow, and stopped. A car door. Then 2 more. And then my doorbell, which almost never rings after dark, rang twice. I opened the door but not the storm door, and then I thought better of it, stepped out, and stood on my own porch in my cardigan with my arms folded against the cold. Three of them under the yellow porch light. My father in his good coat. My mother with a tissue already balled in her fist. My sister half a step behind like a campaign manager at a bad press conference. Kyle stayed in the car with the engine ticking, a silhouette behind glass. Watching, not listening, which if you think about it was my whole family in one image. Jess slipped past them to her car with a nod nobody returned. My father started at full volume, because volume has always been his opening position. Family. Blood. We raised you. Lawyers at the holidays. What kind of person? I let it land around me like weather. When he stopped to breathe, I said the first thing I'd said, and I kept it level. You're on my porch at midnight, Dad. I've been outside the door for 3 years. Now we've all stood in the cold. That took something out of him. Fury needs a screaming partner, and I wasn't auditioning. He looked at my mother, then down at my welcome mat. The same mat where I'd set the binder he wouldn't read. And when he spoke again, his voice had bargaining in it, which in my father is the sound of fear. Look, tear up those letters, tear them up, and come Thursday, and we will forget all of this ever happened. There it was. Not an apology. An offer. They hadn't driven 20 minutes at midnight to say sorry. They'd come to negotiate. And my mother stepped forward, reaching for my hands, to put the real price on the table. But before my mother could speak, Brooke stepped into the light, and for the first time in 3 years I saw my actual sister, not the brand. The porch bulb is unkind. She looked tired the way plaster looks tired, hairline cracks under the paint. You think I wanted Nana's money? She said quietly, no frosting anywhere in it. Kyle was out of work 11 months, Thea. 11. We were 2 missed payments from losing the house, and nobody knew, because nobody was ever going to know. You want to know what I did with it? Groceries. The mortgage. Madison's braces. Glamorous, right? She wrapped her coat tighter, and the next part came out like a creed she'd been reciting all her life. I keep this family looking like a family. The cards, the tables, the photos, the church. All of it, that's me. That is my whole job, and nobody pays me for it. You wrote checks. I wrote the story. And the story needed the money to have gone. Nowhere. It needed quiet. You were already the one they wondered about. The one with the accounts. And it just went to you. You have no idea what the story costs. I stood there in the cold and, for one honest moment, I understood my sister completely. The same house that taught me to buy my place with checks had taught her to buy hers with appearances, and hers ran on fear the same as mine. She stole quietly for the same reason I paid quietly, because in our family, needing something out loud was the one unforgivable act. Understanding is not absolution. She let my name burn for 3 years to keep her story warm, but I finally knew what I was standing across from. Not a monster, a bookkeeper of a different ledger. My mother took my hands then, and hers were freezing, and I let her hold them while I said what I had never once said out loud, start to finish, in an even voice, the way I'd deliver an audit finding to a client who wasn't going to like it. Let's do the numbers, since nobody else in this family will. $52,000, 4 years ago. So you'd keep the house. Signed, notarized, witnessed. 13 payments came back. $5,200. The check stopped the same winter my name went into the ground, and still I kept paying your homeowner's insurance. $1,900 a year, 4 years running, auto pay, while I sat at the kids' table and then the dessert shift and then nowhere at all. $9,400 left Nana's account through her own checkbook. I found it. I reported it. I asked for an independent audit, and this family looked at me like I'd tracked mud on the carpet. A judge stamped every transaction I ever made, and none of you turned past the cover page. I looked at Brooke. You told me once I'm better with numbers than with people. You were right. Those are the numbers. There's one more line item, and it doesn't have a dollar sign. My name. In a town where my clients share a pew with Aunt Pam. That one's not in the letters, because no one can pay it back. Nobody spoke. My father was looking at the porch boards. Somewhere behind me in the warm house, the kitchen clock ticked, the way another kitchen clock had ticked through 6 seconds 3 weeks ago. My mother squeezed my hands and I watched her gather herself, and I knew, the way you know a storm by the smell, that whatever she said next was the real reason they had come. "Honey," she said, "come home. You can have it all back." "Come Thursday," my mother said, warming my hands in her cold ones, and her voice was the voice from before all of it, the voice from fevers and skinned knees, and it went through me like heat through butter. "Your chair is still there, honey. Nobody's touched your chair. Brooke will tell everyone it was a misunderstanding, a bank error, all cleared up, nobody's fault. People forget, sweetheart. They do. By Christmas it will be like none of it ever happened. All you have to do is tear up the letters. That's all. Family doesn't need paper." I want to be honest with you about this part because the easy version of this story skips it. I wanted to say yes. I wanted it so badly my teeth ached. 36 years of wanting it stood up inside me all at once. The chair, the table, the kitchen steam, my mother's hands exactly like this. I saw myself at 7, carrying plates nobody asked me to carry, glowing every time somebody said, "What would we do without Thea?" There it all was, gift-wrapped, one signature away. And then the words did what words do when an accountant finally holds them still. A bank error. My name would come back clean, laundered through one more lie, a fresh one, invented on my porch at midnight, with some blameless bank taking the fall this time. Peace. Purchased again, with somebody's name. The coin didn't change, only whose face was on it. And the chair. The chair had been mine as long as I paid the note and the premium and the piper, and never one day longer. They were not offering me my place back. They were offering to sell it to me. Over my mother's shoulder, through my front window, I could see the kitchen table. Nana's pan sitting on it, black and patient. My phone beside it and on the screen, still open. A 15-year-old's question nobody out here had answered. Is it true? I took my hands back, gently. "No," I said, and the word came out quiet and whole, like a stamp coming down. My mother's face began to crumple and I held up my hand, not hard, just steady, because I wasn't finished. And for once in my life, I was going to finish. Here's what happens instead, and I'll say it once, slowly, because it's simpler than you think. I am not tearing up the letters. The debt is real, so it stays. But hear the rest, Dad. $400 a month, same as your own signature promised, through Ms. Voss's office, starting December. No lawsuit, no lien. I'm not taking the house. I looked at my father until he looked at me. I'm not you. I don't take roofs from family. I just stopped donating mine. Then to my mother. The insurance is yours now. It always should have been. And Brooke. My sister lifted her chin, campaign face on, and I almost admired it. Your letter goes out by December 1st to every person who got the other version. The true one. Not a bank error. The truth. In your handwriting or Sandra Voss files, and everything in that envelope gets read into a public record instead of a Christmas card. Your choice. It was always your choice. My mother was crying now, the careful tears gone messy at last, and she said the thing mothers say when the price finally lands on their own side of the table. Why are you doing this to us? At Thanksgiving? Why can't you just... And she didn't finish, because we both heard the next words coming, and neither of us could bear them twice. Keep it pleasant. Pleasant, I said, was the most expensive thing this family ever bought, and I kept the receipts. The porch went very still. Somewhere down the street a dog barked twice and gave up. You can have the piece, I told them, all three, each in turn, ending on my mother, saying it the way you set down something heavy and precious and finished. You can have the quiet, the story, the drama-free table. Take all of it. I'm keeping my name. And my mother, I want this on the record, because it is the exact price of everything. My mother straightened her spine, wiped her eyes with the bald tissue, and turned into someone polite. "Well," she said. "Well." And she took my father's arm and she chose him, and the story, and the car. And I stood on my porch and let her. The car doors closed, one, then another, soft as commas. The engine turned over, and Brooke didn't move. She stood on my bottom step with her arms crossed, looking out at the street like it owed her money, and we stayed like that for a moment. 2 sisters and 1 porch light, and 30-some years of unpaid invoices hanging in the cold between us. "You could have just paid it quiet," she said finally, not even angry, almost curious. "Like always. You'd have been back at the table by Easter. That's how it works." "I know," I said. "That's why it had to be certified." She looked at me then. Really looked, and I watched the professional in her do the math. The one kind of math she's genuinely good at, the math of standing and audience and cost. Whatever total she reached, it settled her shoulders half an inch. She nodded, the small nod one bookkeeper gives another across a closed account. She went down the steps, and at the bottom she stopped, her back still to me, breath showing in the headlights. "The letter will go out Monday," she said. That was all. "Not sorry. Not you were always the strong one. My sister has never once apologized in her life, and I'd have distrusted it if she'd started on my porch. But a commitment with a date on it, that, from Brooke, was a signature." She got in the car, and my family backed out of my driveway and drove off to salvage their pleasant holiday, and I stood there until the taillights turned at the corner. Then I went inside and closed the door and turned the deadbolt, and the sound it made was small and enormous. 12:47, said the kitchen clock. I wasn't even slightly tired. Here is what I did in the first hour of my new life. I took Nana's roasting pan off the table and set it on the stove, where it has always belonged. I took the recipe card from the bottom of the records box. Salt, brown sugar, orange peel, her handwriting faded pale but leaning honestly to the right. And I made the brine at 1 o'clock in the morning, in my quiet kitchen, in the pan they had scheduled for pickup at the back door. Steam rose. The house smelled like every good November of my childhood, except this time nobody was going to hand me a coat and a casserole and the long drive home. Then I picked up my phone and answered the one message that had deserved an answer all along. "Madison, is it true?" I typed, deleted, typed again, and in the end I sent her the plainest thing I had because 15 deserves plain. "It's true, sweetheart, and you are always welcome at my table. Always." She wrote back in 4 seconds, the way only teenagers can. A heart. And then, I knew it. I knew it. I sat down at my table with the steam ghosting up behind me, and I finally let myself understand what I'd actually bought that night, and what I'd actually paid. For 36 years I had believed, somewhere under the spreadsheets, that steady payments equaled steady love, that if I just kept every account in this family current, someday the statement would come back marked paid in full. Beloved. Brooke believed the same thing about her stories. 2 frightened bookkeepers, 1 house, different ledgers. Well, she was right about me, in the end. I am better with numbers than with people. Numbers told the truth the whole time. Numbers never once lied about me. Tomorrow there would be a turkey, and a table. Mine. And whoever sat at it would sit there for free. Thanksgiving came up clear and cold. I roasted a 14-pound bird in Nana's pan for a table of 5. Jess and her husband, Mrs. Alvarez from next door, who's been alone since spring, me, and 1 empty chair I set on purpose, because you never know. At 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang, and there on my porch, cheeks red, breath steaming, a grocery bag clutched like contraband, stood Madison. "Mom thinks I'm at Hannah's," she said. "I brought rolls?" The empty chair had an owner by 2:05. She ate 2 platefuls, told Mrs. Alvarez about her braces coming off, and washed the roasting pan afterward without being asked, standing at my sink in her socks. And if you think I made it through that, without stepping into the pantry once to collect myself. You overestimate accountants. The Monday after, Brooke's letter went out, exactly as promised. I got my copy Wednesday. 2 cold lines, no apology anywhere in them. The questions about Nana's accounts were not Thea's doing. I was responsible for the withdrawals, and I am repaying the estate. Signed, Brooke. As a document, it was a masterpiece of minimalism. As a correction, it was enough, certified as it were in her own hand, to every mailbox that got the original lie. The first week of December, an envelope arrived from Sandra Voss's office. My parents had signed the schedule, and enclosed was the first check in 3 years. $400. The memo line was blank. My father used to write house on everyone, back when he still wrote them. The blank line was its own small message, and I chose to read it as a beginning. Mid-December, the Hendersons came back, sheepish, carrying their shoebox of receipts like a peace offering. The wife said only, "We heard." Well, we heard. That's how it goes in a town like mine. The wind doesn't apologize, it just changes direction. Aunt Pam has said nothing to me, not so much as a hello, though I'm told she's stopped saying things about me, which from Pam is practically a sonnet. My mother sent a Christmas card. Mom and Dad, printed, signed, no note. The politest surface in the world, and nothing underneath it that either of us is ready to say. I put it on the mantel anyway. She's still my mother. The truth is, still the truth. Those 2 facts live in different houses now, and I have finally, at 36, stopped trying to make them split the rent. Some Sundays the phone doesn't ring at all, and I won't dress it up for you. The quiet costs something. I paid for my name with my mother's voice, and there are evenings I stand at the stove and feel the exact size of that bill. But here's what I notice more. Nobody at my table this year was paying to be there. Nobody was performing. Madison texts me her algebra grades and her outrage about the cafeteria, and in the spring she wants to learn how the firm works, because, quote, "Somebody in this family should know where money actually goes. The pan lives at my house. The debt is being paid on schedule. And my name, my quiet, boring, notarized name, is mine, free and clear, no cosigners." Here is what 3 years and 4 certified envelopes taught me. Peace that has to be purchased isn't peace at all. It's a debt. Collecting interest in somebody's name, and the family ledger only balanced on the night I stood on my own porch, in the cold, and said quietly to the people I love most, "You can have the peace. I'm keeping my name." 4 green receipts, 68 missed calls, a turkey brining in Nana's pan at 1 in the morning. That was the price of my name, and it was worth every cent. If you've ever paid and paid for a piece you were never allowed to sit inside, tell me your story in the comments. I read everyone. And subscribe to Calm Drama Stories, because next week, another quiet woman stops paying.